Welcome to Man in Progress, Forging Manhood. I'm Travis Murray, values coach and your guide to building a life driven by real values. Each week we explore what it means to be a man today, talk about and to thinkers and doers who've been through it, and give you steps to show up better for yourself and those you love. If you're ready to forge your own path, you're in the right place. Let's get to it. You've stood in the forge long enough to know the heat. You felt the hammer strike and heard the steel sing. You've seen sparks scatter and fade. Each blow shapes you, but shaping is only half the battle, because there's an enemy you can't see, one that doesn't stand in front of you with a sword drawn. It doesn't roar in your face or fight in the open. It's called resistance. Resistance creeps in quietly, whispering that today can be skipped, that tomorrow is fine, that comfort is safer than calling. Resistance is the weight in your chest when you should rise. It's the voice that tells you your dream is too big, too late, or too foolish. It's the invisible current pulling you back into the shadows just when you've taken a step into the light. And here's the truth. Resistance doesn't die. You don't slay it once. It's a war of attrition, a daily struggle, a shadow that follows until your last breath. Ernest Shackleton knew it when he woke every morning stranded on the ice, leading men who were starving and cold. Musashi knew it as he wrote of discipline, the way of the warrior, a fight renewed every sunrise. But there's another truth, darker still. One day, the quench comes. The steel you've forged, the values you've hammered, the strength you've built will be plunged without warning into fire's opposite, into cold, crushing shock. And in that instant, you'll find out if your steel holds or if it cracks. This episode is about both, the daily battle with resistance and the decisive moment of the quench. One is a whisper, the other a hammer. Together they decide whether you'll stand or shatter. Resistance is everywhere, but it rarely calls itself by name. It doesn't walk into your life and announce, "I am here to stop you." Instead, it wears disguises like procrastination, excuses, perfectionism, comfort, food, sometimes even busyness. Think of the forge when raw iron is pulled from the earth. It's tangled with impurities that weaken the metal. If the smith doesn't work them out, the blade may look polished on the surface, but it won't survive the first strike. Resistance is that slag. It clings to you. It mixes with your best intentions. It makes you brittle. How does resistance show up in your life? Maybe it's the snooze button you keep hitting. Maybe it's the scroll through endless feeds, convincing yourself you're learning or connecting when really you're hiding. Maybe it's the project you've dreamed of starting, the book, the business, the training, but you keep waiting for the right moment. The right time never comes, and that's resistance's first trick. It convinces you to delay until delay becomes your lifestyle. Here's the gut punch. Resistance doesn't care about your talent. It doesn't care about your good heart. It doesn't care that you love your family, that you've had glimpses of greatness, that once upon a time you were strong. Resistance only cares that you don't move forward today. And if it can steal today, it wins. Every man listening knows this voice. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It says, "You've worked hard enough. Take a break." It says, "You'll start tomorrow. No rush." It says, "Who are you to think you can change?" And if you believe it, even once, you've already laid your hammer down. But here's the forged truth. Steel doesn't shape itself. It doesn't become a blade by accident. It requires daily fire, daily strikes, daily shaping. The smith cannot rest and expect the work to continue on its own, and neither can you. Ernest Shackleton, stranded in Antarctica, understood resistance. Each morning he woke with 27 men looking to him, their lives depending on him. Resistance told him to despair, to lie down in the snow, to surrender to the frozen world, but he refused. He got up, he led, not once, but every single day for 2 years until he brought them home alive. Musashi, undefeated in more than 60 duels, understood resistance too. His greatest battles weren't on the field, but within. He wrote that today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is victory over lesser men. His words were clear. Discipline is daily. Resistance isn't defeated once. It is met every morning. If you don't see resistance, it's because it's disguised itself too well. If you think you've conquered it, it's already winning. The first strike against resistance is naming it, pulling it into the light, calling it out for what it is, the slag in your soul that must be hammered out if you ever want to stand unbroken. If resistance is the slag in the steel, then the daily battle is the hammering out of those impurities. Every sunrise, you wake with a choice: lift the hammer or let the metal cool untouched. And here's the harsh truth: if you don't strike, the steel doesn't stay where it was yesterday. It doesn't hold. It begins to harden in the wrong shape. It becomes stubborn, brittle, unready for what's ahead. That's why the battle is daily, not once, not in a single heroic moment, but every morning, every hour, every decision. You don't overcome resistance by waiting for the day you feel like it. You overcome it by striking even when your hands ache, even when your mind begs for comfort, even when no one's watching. The forge doesn't care about your excuses. Neither does life. Most men think they'll rise to greatness when the moment demands it. They picture themselves standing tall in some imagined crisis, suddenly disciplined, suddenly courageous. But if you haven't been swinging the hammer every day, you won't magically find the strength when the test comes. You'll fold. You'll crack. Because you never trained your steel in the quiet, ordinary days when no one was cheering. This is why discipline feels small, but matters most. Waking up when you said you would, finishing the work when distraction pulls, saying no to comfort so you can say yes to calling. These acts seem tiny, forgettable, but they're strikes of the hammer. They're how you shape the core of who you are. Think of Shackleton again. He didn't wait for a miracle to save his men. He didn't cling to one grand gesture. He fought resistance through relentless daily tasks, rationing food, keeping morale, leading marches across the ice floors. Each act was ordinary. Together, they became extraordinary. That's the rhythm of the daily battle. And Musashi, the warrior of two swords, he knew his rhythm too. He spoke of the 1,000 days of training to forge and 10,000 days of training to polish. Every day was practice, sharpening, refining. Not once in a while, every day. So what does this mean for you? It means resistance will be there tomorrow morning waiting. It means you'll hear its whisper when you sit down to work, when you choose whether to train, when you decide whether to numb out with a screen or build something lasting. And your only defense is habit, rhythm, daily hammer strikes. The blacksmith doesn't ask whether the metal wants to be struck. He doesn't wait until the fire feels right. He heats, he strikes, he shapes, because that's the work. You are no different. But let's not sugarcoat this. The daily battle is exhausting. It grinds you down. You'll question why it matters, especially when progress feels invisible. Some days, you'll swear you're swinging the hammer into nothing, and that's when men quit. They don't break in the quench. They break in the silence of daily resistance. They stop showing up. But if you endure, if you keep striking, you'll find a rhythm that resistance hates. You'll discover momentum. You'll start to see the steel take shape under your blows. And here's the paradox: resistance never leaves, but it does weaken when faced consistently. The more you show up, the less power it has. It doesn't disappear, but it bends under the hammer. This is the daily battle, not glamorous, not glorious, but the foundation of everything. Without it, the quench will destroy you. With it, you stand a chance when the test comes. Because make no mistake, the test is coming. The quench is waiting, silent and sudden. And when it plunges you into its cold shock, all that will matter is whether you've put in the daily work, whether your steel is ready. The forge is loud, hot, and predictable. You know the rhythm of the hammer. You know the sound of steel under strike. But the quench is sudden, violent, and merciless. It takes the red-hot steel you've been shaping and plunges it into the cold, shocking grip of water or oil. It hisses, it screams, it resists. This is the moment that reveals the truth. Did you hammer enough? Did you shape it right? Or will it crack under the shock? Life carries its own quenches. They come without warning: a betrayal you never saw coming, a job loss you didn't prepare for, a diagnosis that drops like a hammer to the chest. These are the moments that test not what you wish you were, but what you actually are. Here's the brutal part: you don't get to schedule the quench. You don't get to say, I'll be ready next year. It comes when it comes. And when it does, the only preparation you'll have is the daily work you've done beforehand. This is why resistance matters. This is why the daily battle matters. They're not just abstract struggles. They're your training. Every time you resist the temptation to quit, every time you hold to your discipline, every time you choose the harder path instead of the easier one, you're preparing your steel. You're shaping it for the shock that will come. Because the quench will find you. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. Think of Shackleton again. His quench came not once, but again and again. Ships crushed by ice, months stranded in frozen seas, marches over lethal landscapes. Each time the steel of his character was plunged into cold shock. And though he faltered, though fear gnawed at him, his metal didn't shatter. Why? Because he had forged himself long before the crisis. Or look at Musashi. He fought over 60 duels, each one potentially fatal. He wasn't surprised by the quench of combat because he had spent years tempering himself through practice, discipline, and self-denial. When the cold shock came, his steel rang true. But what about us? We tell ourselves we'll rise to the occasion, that when the quench comes, we'll be strong. But if you haven't been forging, you won't hold, you'll crack. And cracks don't lie. Maybe you've already felt this. Maybe your quench came in the form of a divorce, or losing someone you loved, or standing in front of temptation and falling straight into it. That's when you see the fissures in your steel. That's when you realize the hammer strikes you skipped, the fires you avoided. But hear this: a crack doesn't mean the end. It means you need to return to the forge. The steel can be reforged. The cracks can be worked out. The quench may have revealed your weakness, but it hasn't ended your story. Here's where many men get stuck. They think a crack disqualifies them. They hide it. They numb it. They pretend it isn't there. And while they're hiding, the weakness grows. Their blade dulls. Their steel weakens. But the wise man does the opposite. He acknowledges the crack, admits the failure, and brings himself back to the fire. He endures the hammering again, this time with more humility. And when the next quench comes, he's ready. This is the cycle of becoming. Fire, hammer, quench, over and over. There's no graduation, no final diploma. in strength. Only the daily rhythm, punctuated by the sudden tests that reveal who you really are. And here's the part you need to feel deep in your chest. The quench doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care about your plans, your words, or your dreams. It cares only about what you are. You can't talk your way through it. You can't fake your way past it. The quench exposes, it strips away illusions. So the question is not whether the quench will come, it's whether you'll be ready. And the readiness is not built in the moment of crisis. It's built today, in the resistance you fight, in the daily battle you endure. The quench is coming. For me, for you, for every man who dares to step into life with values worth forging. The cold water waits, and when you hear the hiss, when the steel screams, when the shock threatens to split you apart, that's when you'll know if you've done the work. Steel doesn't always survive the quench. Sometimes it screams, hardens, and comes out strong. Other times, it cracks. The smith lifts it from the water and sees the flaw running jagged through its spine. Too brittle, too rushed, too much pride in the heat, not enough patience in the shaping. Men are the same. The quench of life reveals cracks we didn't know were there, or worse, ones we ignored. The betrayal we thought we could handle, the temptation we swore we'd resist, the pressure we convinced ourselves wouldn't break us. And then, under the cold shock of reality, we splinter. What do most men do in that moment? They hide it. They cover the crack with excuses, pride, or silence. They act like the fracture doesn't exist. But here's the truth. Once the crack is there, you can't pretend it away. It will spread, it will weaken you, and the next quench won't just test you, it will shatter you. That's why the forge exists, not just to shape the steel, but to fix it, to reheat what was broken, to hammer out the fracture, to try again. The forge is the place where failure isn't final, but fuel. I know this because I've lived it. I've felt the crack run through me. The moment I thought I had built strong only to collapse in temptation, or anger, or despair. I told myself I was ready, but when the quench came, I snapped. That fracture was loud. It was loud enough to echo through my life. And for a while, I wanted to believe I was done, that one failure meant the whole blade was useless. But that's the lie resistance whispers. See, you broke. You're worthless. Don't even try again. The stronger truth is this: steel can be reforged. A man can be reforged. But reforging requires humility. It means admitting you cracked, admitting you're not as strong as you thought. It means stepping back into the fire willingly, knowing it will burn, knowing the hammer will strike, knowing it will hurt. Reforging isn't glamorous. It's painful. It's humiliating. But it's the only way forward. Think of the men in history. Lincoln failed in business, lost elections, buried children, wrestled depression, and cracked under more pressure than most of us will ever know. But he stepped back into the fire again and again. Each time the hammer fell, he didn't run, he endured, and eventually his steel held. Or look at Churchill. He was mocked, sidelined, and written off. His early career was riddled with mistakes. He cracked under political battles and found himself exiled from influence. But when the world quench came in the form of war, he had been reforged by failure. His steel was ready when it mattered most. That's what cracks can do, if we let them. They can either be the evidence of your end or the start of your reforging. Here's the pattern. Step 1, admit the fracture. Stop lying to yourself. Call it what it is: a failure, a weakness, a crack. Step 2, return to the forge. Don't wallow. Don't hide. Step back into the fire of discipline, truth, and community. Step 3. Endure the hammer. Let the blows of accountability, honesty, and practice strike where they must. This is how the fracture closes. Step 4. Prepare again for the quench, because it's coming back. Life will test you again, and this time, you'll know what to do. The lesson is not perfection, it's persistence. You're not trying to forge flawless steel. You're forging steel that can be broken, reforged, and made stronger than before. A crack doesn't have to be your shame. It can be your story. The proof that you were tested, found weak, and chose to fight again. That's more powerful than pretending you never faltered, because the man who pretends will shatter. The man who admits will endure. And who endures, who reforges, he becomes unbreakable, not because he never cracked, but because he learned how to heal. So if you're listening to this and you feel the fracture inside you, don't despair. Don't let resistance whisper that it's over. Step back into the fire. Take the hammer again. Let the flames remind you of who you're becoming. Because one day, the quench will return. And when it does, you'll hear the hiss, feel the shock, and know, this time, I will not crack. Every man wants to believe the forge is a one-time event. We step into the fire once, we endure the hammer once, we survive the quench once, and then we're done. Finished. Perfect. But that's not how life works. A single forging doesn't create a sword fit for battle. Real steel is forged again and again because one round isn't enough to remove all the weakness. And here's the truth. You don't get to graduate from the forge. Not in this life. You're always in it, always moving through the cycle. Some days, you're in the fire, burning off the impurities. Some days, you're on the anvil, taking blows that shape your edge. Some days, you're in the quench, tested under pressure. And some days, you're being lifted up, examined, waiting for the next round. This isn't punishment, it's preparation. The forge is a cycle, because life is a cycle. Challenges don't come once. Temptations don't knock once. Resistance doesn't fight once. They circle back again and again, each time asking the same question, are you ready? The danger is thinking you've arrived, that you've outgrown the forge, that you don't need the fire anymore, that you can coast. That's when resistance slips in quietly, unnoticed, and starts bending you back into old habits. That's when the blade dulls, the steel softens, and the cracks grow. Living the cycle means embracing it as a way of life, not fighting it, not resenting it, but leaning into it, expecting the fire, expecting the hammer, expecting the quench, and instead of asking, when will this end? Asking, how will this make me stronger? Look at the soldiers who train daily. They don't practice once and call it good. They drill every morning, every night, so that when the battle comes, muscle memory takes over. The forge works the same way. It's daily, daily discipline, daily shaping, daily testing. Let me say this plainly. There's no once and for all victory over resistance. It will rise again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. And the only way to win is to keep showing up. Keep fighting. Keep enduring the cycle. That's what separates a blade that breaks from a blade that lasts. Think of the samurai sword. The katana isn't made in one pass. It's folded, hammered, quenched, and reheated dozens of times. Each round doesn't make it weaker. It makes it sharper, stronger, more flexible. That's you, if you embrace the cycle instead of running from it. But embracing the cycle doesn't mean loving the pain. Nobody loves the fire. Nobody enjoys the hammer. Nobody asks for the quench. What it means is trusting the process, trusting that the fire has purpose, trusting that the hammer isn't random, trusting that the quench reveals, not destroys. And here's the other key. You're not meant to walk through the cycle alone. The smith doesn't forge steel in isolation. He uses tools. He calls on apprentices. He learns from masters. In the same way, men need brothers. We need people who will pull us back into the forge when we want to run. People who will point out the cracks we're pretending don't exist. People who will hold the hammer when we can't. So here's the charge. Stop waiting for the day when the cycle ends. That day won't come. Instead, commit to living in it. Wake up each morning and ask, what fire will I face today? What blows will shape me? What resistance will try to break me? And if the quench comes, am I ready? And if the answer is no, if you're not ready, that's fine. Step back into the forge. That's the whole point. Because the cycle isn't here to shame you. It's here to shape you. Every crack, every flaw, every failure, it all becomes part of your story. Not the end of it, but the proof of it. Proof that you've been tested, reforged, and strengthened. The man who accepts the cycle becomes dangerous. Not because he's flawless, but because he can't be destroyed. Resistance may knock him down, but he rises. Life may quench him and reveal cracks, but he reforges. The hammer may strike, but it only makes him sharper. This is what it means to live forged. Not to be done, but to be becoming. So as we close this chapter, remember, the cycle is the way. Fire, hammer, quench, repeat. Every day, every season, until the final breath leaves your lungs. That's when the forging ends. Until then, embrace it. Because every round makes you stronger. Every round shapes you deeper. Every round prepares you for the battle you don't even see coming yet. And that battle is coming. You've walked with me through the fire, the hammer, the quench, and the cycle. You've seen how resistance isn't a one-time enemy, but a daily opponent. You've felt how life itself tests your steel, sometimes without warning, sometimes harder than you think you can bear. And you've learned that cracks aren't the end. They're invitations to step back into the forge and be made stronger. Now here's the truth I don't want you to miss. The forge never closes. There's no bell that rings and says, you're done. There's no certificate that proves you've finally arrived. The forge is open every morning when your eyes open, and it doesn't shut until you close them again at night. And tomorrow it opens again. That might sound exhausting, maybe even unfair, but it's not a curse. It's a gift. The cycle doesn't end because you're always capable of becoming more. The moment you're done being tested, you're done living, and you're not done yet. So the question becomes, what will you do with this day in the forge? Will you step into the fire willingly or try to hide from it? Will you resist the hammer or let it shape you? Will you see the quench as punishment or as proof of your progress? This week, your task is simple, but it's not easy. It's the kind of task that can change the way you live if you take it seriously. So your homework, a daily forge journal. Every day this week, I want you to journal 3 short reflections. Name your resistance. Write down the one thing that tried to stop you today. It could be procrastination, distraction, fear, laziness, self-doubt. Whatever it was, call it by name. Naming it gives you power over it. Next, name your hammer. What shaped you today? Was it feedback you didn't want to hear? A hard choice you had to make? A challenge you didn't see coming? Write down the blow and how it shaped your character. Next, name your quench. Was there a moment that tested you? A direct, unexpected challenge that revealed whether your values were real or just talk? Write it down. And then, write whether you stood firm or cracked under pressure. That's it. 3 reflections each night before you close your eyes. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't write a novel. just 3 truths. At the end of the week, read back through your notes, see the cycle, notice the patterns, and then ask yourself, am I becoming sharper or am I becoming duller? This isn't about guilt. It's not about shame. It's about awareness. Because awareness is the beginning of transformation. You can't fight resistance if you don't recognize it. You can't be shaped by the hammer if you are pretending it didn't hit you. You can't endure the quench if you don't admit you've been tested. And here's the most important part. When you crack, don't quit. Don't throw the blade away. Step back into the forge. The cracks don't prove you're broken. They prove you've been worked. They prove you're alive. So this week, live in the forge. Don't just listen to this podcast and nod along. Put pen to paper. Do the work. Because the man who writes his truth is the man who learns to live it. But for now, stay in the cycle. Fire, hammer, quench, repeat. Do your daily forge journals and remember this. This isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. The blade doesn't have to be flawless to be deadly. It just has to be forged. So go live forged this week. And when you write down your fire, your hammer, and your quench tonight, know this. You are not alone in the forge. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week in the forge.